Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for tonight's workshop presenting me, bringing your story to life in applications. It's great to see all of you here. My name is Rachel Alter, and I work in Chicago on the Springboard team, along with Jess and Naomi. And Springboard, Chicago's hub for Jewish teen programs, helps teens connect with and find leadership opportunities in the Jewish community. And through meeting incredibly impressive nominees and honorees for the 18 Under 18, a celebration of Jewish teens, we saw a need for a workshop to help you share your fantastic stories of growth, of impact and accomplishments in ways that will resonate with broad audiences. And through our workshop tonight, we'll ask you to reflect on and bring examples of the achievements that you've had and the skills you've developed serving on youth boards, working at camps, and participating in other community programs. Through a Jewish teen experience, you may have conquered a fear, developed and built upon talents, or taken on a leadership role. So how do you take your fantastic experience and translate it to an essay question, personal statement, an interview, or an application? Well, we are so fortunate to be joined by Dr. Daniel Shore to help us answer this question. Daniel will take us through this workshop, and toward the end of our time together, we'll shift into our Q&A portion. And if you have any questions over the next hour that are not directly connected to the topic that we're on, please message Jess and we'll ask those questions during the Q&A at the end. And I want to share a couple notes before we jump in and get started. First, since we're in this virtual space together, we know that sometimes unexpected issues arise, and Naomi is here to help. Naomi has renamed herself Tech Support, so if you have any trouble or questions, please feel free to reach out to her in the chat. And also, you have the option to turn on captions on your own screen. So if the captions are on and you'd like them off, or they're off and you'd like to turn them on, you can navigate to the bottom of the screen. You'll see a CC button and you can select hide or show captions. And finally, we invite and encourage everyone to please keep your videos on, and we'll stay muted unless you're speaking, which there will be plenty of opportunities to do throughout our time together. And now I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Daniel Shore. Daniel grew up in Granville, Illinois, went to Bradley University for his undergraduate degree in psychology, lived in Chicago for 2 years, and then went on to complete his PhD in workplace psychology from George Mason University. He's currently working on multiple startup ventures, facilitating teamwork development training across the gamut of human interaction, from government cybersecurity teams to summer camp staff. Daniel has always been very involved in camp and Jewish life. He spent a total of 16 summers at Esrui as a camper, then staff member, and then assistant director. He was a nifty advisor in Chicago. He has leveraged all of these experiences in his own professional development and is very excited to share his expertise in translating the professional value of youth experiences through storytelling and resume writing. And I will turn it over to you, Daniel.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here, excited to help all of you explore what's possible with your experiences and how to professionalize them in language and also in storytelling. I would ask if you're able to and comfortable to come on video when you're ready. This is a very engaging format for a workshop where people get to share, people get to think. You're going to be in breakout rooms. So those opportunities, and Grace, thanks for coming on. I love that you're outside walking. Yeah, wherever you are, if it's possible to come on video, because part of this is about connecting and, being part of this experience. If you're not able to, totally understand and respect that as well. Even if you're not on video, it'll be great if you can come off mute when there are times to share and talk a little bit about your experiences. I want to kind of crowdsource a little bit of the energy, and I'll bring the rest as I walk you through some of the expertise I've developed. I actually taught a course for undergraduates for 4 semesters, in addition to my own experiences, where I learned the curriculum of resume writing, job interviews, and applications. And that's where kind of my past experiences working at camp and in Nifty and also on other Chicago-based programming in the Jewish community really came to light for me as how to articulate what it is that I've done and why it's valuable to someone who knows nothing about any of the programs that I've been a part of. So that's where I'm coming from. Super excited to share and also to hear from you. So let's get started. I'm going to open us up with a question. Kind of broadly speaking, would someone like to share an experience you've had applying for something, interviewing for something. Just kind of tell us a little bit about what it was, what happened, how did it go, what was successful, what was a challenge. I don't know, keep it to like 60 seconds, just give us an overview, but we'll use that as kind of our icebreaker opening question to kind of what you've already tried and done. Whether, it went the way you planned or not, that's okay. Would love for a couple people to share. If you want to use the reaction button or just come off mute if we can time it right, whatever helps. But yeah, let's open it up for a minute. And I'll rephrase the question. And Naomi, can you support in the chat? What's a previous experience you've had applying and or interviewing for a position, and how did it go?
I can share.
Yeah, Grace.
My first job was a counselor, and I had to apply to that. I had to do like a written application, submit a resume, and then I had to interview for that, and I got the job.
Nice. Written application and resume. What would you say was the difference between your application, like the written application, and the resume? How did those kind of go together?
I would say my written resume was kind of like more school credentials, and then my interview was kind of more like an opportunity to show my personality and like, I don't know, just my ability to like be friendly and stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, kind of come off the page and be a person. Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Grace. Who else? Leave a little space in case you're not sure if you want to share yet. This could also, I'll expand our question. If there's something you're thinking about applying for, what is it? And that'll be helpful for us too. All right, keep thinking about that. We're gonna come to one of my examples, which is I had at the beginning of grad school, there was an internship for a research consulting company. And essentially other companies hire this company to collect data, to do research, to show that like what they're doing works. One of the areas this consulting firm does, for example, is education data collection. So a school might say, hey, show that we're having a positive impact on students. Maybe it's a specific program they're running, and the company I wanted to work for would go in, create a study, create a survey, create all the data collection, and then analyze the data. So I wanted to be doing data collection and analysis, and almost all of my experience at that point involved summer camp. And I hadn't done anything related to data collection or analysis. So what do you think I highlighted? This is an open question again. What do you think I highlighted in my interview to show that I would be good for this job?
Teamwork.
Say, Daniel, since I have you off mute, can you share a little bit more, like why would teamwork matter to this company?
They need people to work together so they can collect the data and analyze it.
Yeah, these projects are huge, right? Collecting data for a school district. Some of you might come from small school districts or large. Typically the large ones are the ones doing data collection and research. So yeah, you have to work on a team and lots of people in different roles. What else?
Responsibility.
Where'd that come from? Who's sharing? Oh, there we go. Harrison, nice. Responsibility. I'm gonna have you elaborate on that a little bit. Why was responsibility relevant to that kind of job?
Making sure you're doing like the right task and staying on the task while completing it.
Yeah, super important that I'm responsible and accountable, right? If I'm getting data on behalf of this company, then we got to make sure it's good, and that it's on time, right? We have to meet deadlines. We have to provide content or reports as they need them. Good. All right, thanks, Harrison. One more. what's something else that I would highlight in my interview for that job?
Like if you're friendly or personable, because if like you're going, like you're being like high, like you're gonna go into other places to do your own work. So you want to like be able to show that like you can like connect with the people who you're like gonna be surveying about.
Yeah, I love that. And Jordana, I like that you came to the word connect. So this is a great example for everyone. We're going to get into language and kind of some of the details of language in a little bit. But connect is a great example. If I want to say I'm personable, I'm a nice guy, that's one thing. But if I can prove to them that I can connect with other people, that's a skill, right? And I can prove that ways that I've connected. We'll talk about how could I prove that I connect with people? So I love that you came to that. Communication is another really basic skill. And yeah, Daniel Harrison, thank you for sharing yours. Teamwork, responsibility, and connectivity. Let's say those are the three things. And yeah, all of those came up. I'm going to actually share a couple interview answers in a little bit of some of the things I said in that interview. And you'll see where those different pieces play out, because that's what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if I've collected data before. It just matters that I can be part of the team, that I can show up and turn things in responsibly in the way that they expect, and that I can connect both with the people I'm working with and the clients in this case, right? Or the research subjects. Awesome. I love those examples. Okay, so let's dive into what does it mean to actually prove that I can do those things in an interview. And Grace, I want to come back to you for a second. Do you remember kind of how you proved something in your interview, or, they wanted to know that you could do something? How did you articulate that to them?
So I do actually kind of remember like a specific moment. They asked like to hear a real example of like us, I don't know, something like making connections or like supporting people who are younger than you. So they asked for like a specific example of me doing something in my own life. And then like, that's what I provided them.
And so they said, give me a specific example of when you've connected with people. And do you remember what your example was?
Yeah, mine was like I play lacrosse, and it was about like being on a team. Like there's always younger kids on it too, like at any level. So like the younger people on the team. Awesome.
Lacrosse, not directly related to what they wanted, although the working with younger kids sounds like it was. So you were able to kind of span that bridge. I love that. Okay. And by the way, Jordana, is it Jordana or Jordana?
Jordana.
Okay. Just if I reference your example again, okay, Jordana, great. All right. So I'm going to share a visual. This is going to be part, you might see the whole worksheet when I share it at first. I'll zoom in on a certain part. Ultimately, there are 3 steps to putting together kind of a story of evidence, we'll call it, right? How do you prove that you've done a behavior that's valuable to these people? And to do that, I'm going to encourage you all to be thinking about an example that you're going to take into a breakout room. You're going to kind of workshop it a little bit with each other and then come back, and we'll have a few people share, not everyone, but would love for us to think forward about where we're going in the next 20 minutes. Okay. Is kind of how do you structure a story? Where do those stories come from? How do you structure it? And how do you tell it? So the number one piece of advice I have is that you should always talk about things that you love talking about. Nothing will come out better than something that, shows your passion for work that you've done or for something you've accomplished. So I want you to really focus on that as I show you the list I'm about to show you, because I don't want you to.
What am I getting for my meal? Yes, just one beef.
Oh, I think we've. If you're not on mute, go. There we go. So I want you to really think. Don't pick a humdrum story of like, yeah, I could tell that. We're really focusing on like one example, because tonight is the start of a process of learning and getting a resume or application together, preparing for interviews. we're not going to do it all tonight, but we're just going to practice and get a sample into our own heads. It's going to be your sample, so it'll be beneficial to you moving forward. All right, so here's the list. Let's see what you see first, and then, oh, I can only share the whole screen. So you're gonna see the whole screen, and I'll zoom in on part of it. So I call this story time, and we're focused on the left side. Okay, I know there's a distracting, colorful caterpillar on the right side, but ignore the caterpillar. Focusing over here on this column of concepts, and it's choose a topic. So like we were saying, teamwork, responsibility, see all those things? Friendship, that connection piece that Jordana mentioned. So, and I gave you some subcategories, because sometimes it's hard to be like, what's a story about innovation? Well, what's a story about a project or something you created or a new idea? Maybe it's a science fair thing, wherever it comes from. That's one category that you might choose to talk about. Without telling the story, go ahead and put in the chat what category is sticking out to you. Take a moment to read through them, and then go ahead and put in the chat which category you think you might pick a story to practice with tonight. And you can pick two at this moment. You're going to have to pick one eventually. Which of these categories that I'm highlighting stands out to you as one where you're like, oh, I might have a story for that? Naomi, great work on the transcription. All right, go ahead, pop in the chat which one's coming up for you. Great, thank you, Sarah. Love friendship is always good. It's always personal, often has emotion. Innovation, love that. Bring some energy, some excitement, some of that creativity. And you can always change, by the way. Just trying to get an initial read here. Jordana, honesty. All right, teamwork and role models. Yeah, and those might intersect, or they could be two separate categories for you. Thank you, Lori. All right, last chance to share in the chat for now. I'm counting down from 10 in my head, so get in there if you want it shared with the group at the moment. I like the examples that we have. All right. I'm going to close the chat on my end. Okay, so here's what happens next. Step one is choose a topic. Something that, something comes to mind for you, like, yeah, I have a story, I have an experience. Doesn't have to be a story yet, I should say. But I have an experience that relates to one of these things. And I think it would be really powerful for me to share it. It's something I'm passionate about. Remember, rule number one, and maybe the only thing I'll say as a rule, is pick things that you're going to enjoy talking about. Whether you're writing about it or you're speaking about it in an interview, these are the moments that you want to share, because that's really where your best self will come out. Okay, step two is going over to this really simple format. In your story, and you're going to do this in the breakout room, okay? You're going to explain the situation. Now, there's not a whole lot of room to type here, but get a few of the key words down. Where were you? What were you doing? How did you end up there? Okay. Once you were in that situation, what's an action or maybe a couple actions that you took that showcase the skill or the topic? And then this is the most important piece, the result of your action. Because remember, this story is evidence of who you can be in whatever position you're applying for, whether it's a job or school or to be, part of some team or leadership member in a group. The actions are what prove that what you've done in the past could lead to you doing those types of things for the the employer or the organization that you're applying to. Okay, so if you get through all three of these, which you're going to do in breakout rooms, and we'll be in there with you to help facilitate. And actually, let me cue whoever's doing breakout rooms for us to just kind of start to piece those together. I would
Are we
put,
doing, yeah,
I'd put 4 or 5 people in a breakout room.
great. And are you leading one or me, Rachel and Jess leading them?
I think the 3 of you and I'll kind of hop around.
Excellent.
But
They're ready.
don't open those groups yet. Great. Okay. So are there any questions? And I bet there aren't, because we haven't started, really opening the waterfall of sharing yet. You're going to choose a topic and you're going to try to work it into this framework. And it might come out really well, and it might be choppy. You might be proud of it. You might be embarrassed. You might be somewhere in between. All those things are good. The fact that you're here tonight is a huge step in your commitment to professionalizing your past experiences and getting into new experiences. Okay, so I want to acknowledge you already. Whatever happens in this exercise is good. Okay, so what was the situation? And tell it like you're telling a story. I'm going to show you an example, but let people know, here's what was happening. Give them, paint the picture for them. The actions that you took. Here's what I did in that situation. And you want to already be thinking, making sure you're telling the actions that led to results. So you have to kind of think through all 3 parts. It's not really just do one, ABC. But that's what we're going to try to do. And we'll see how it goes in the breakout rooms, and we'll see what people share, and we can always talk more about it. Okay. Now, ultimately, and Grace, back to your example, they're saying, tell me about a time when you blank. And it could be when you were responsible, when you worked well on a team, when you connected with other people, maybe when you connected with your peers, or you connect with people younger than you. And those are the kind of interview and application questions that people are asking. It wasn't always this way. So for adults who are on guardians, we're all kind of adults in different ways. But for people who are guardians on the call, it wasn't always this way. It wasn't always so formal and so standardized. What we found in organizational research is that standardizing questions produces better applicant selection. So now you can be much more certain that you're going to get questions like this. This has become much more standard. And so you want to be ready with your stories to be able to answer these questions. But all you have to worry about now, pick a topic and craft your story. And I'm going to share an example before you go into the breakout room so that you have a point of reference before we move forward. Okay. And I'm just going to focus on the task, action, and results part of this, and you'll see that I add some emotion and other pieces later. But so tell me about a time when you had to manage a project. This was a question I got in my interview for this research consulting company, research firm. And all I had to lean on was my camp experience. So I pulled from my camp experience. I said, here's the situation or the task. I was assigned to manage project development for an all camp program. Now that might not make a lot of sense if you've worked at camp to think about it as project development, but managing a project development, that's a professional task. And we do it at camp, and you'll see how. Okay, so that task required, these are the actions that I had to take, that I collaborate with at least 5 coworkers while making decisions about the timeline, budget, and end goals for the program. So I was in charge of the project. That's the task. And it was an all camp program at a large nonprofit, large youth-based nonprofit, as I would say. Okay. I had to collaborate with 5 coworkers, and I had to make decisions about some of these high-level project development elements. Okay. The result, the project was completed on time, We stayed within budget that was allotted, which was from the decision I led among my coworkers. The end goals that we made prior to the program, because that was one of the things that I took action on earlier, those end goals that I created during the program were met. So the participants were highly engaged. And after the program, we were reflecting how we met those goals. And I even gathered feedback, how I could continue to improve upon my project planning. And the feedback was positive and constructive. It wasn't all rosy. There were some things that I could improve upon. And I felt really good about that. And I'm going to show you, gonna skip ahead a little bit because I want to show you the emotion part. Grace, you mentioned like, really getting to feel like you were a person when you were in your interview, right? I was relieved and proud of having accomplished creating and implementing a successful project. And I felt more confident to build off that, looking forward to the next project. So when you put all that together, it takes about 90 seconds for me to tell this story. And it's about a time when I had to manage a project. Now, this also could be about a time when I had to demonstrate good teamwork. So those intersections are easy. This also could be about a time when I had to be responsible. And so you can use these stories to answer multiple questions. But once you have the story, that's step one of, kind of readying your tool belt for going into an application or an interview and doing that. And just to clarify, we are going to talk about resumes specifically and the language on them and how to structure them. But I like starting with the story because this is the part where I find people have the most challenge of how to say something that isn't just repeating what's on your resume. And this is how you do it. You elaborate the situation or the task, the action you took, and the result. And if you have some emotional component to it, even better. Not required, and certainly not in the practice that we're going to be doing. All right, any questions before we go into breakout rooms? You're going to have 10 minutes, take a couple minutes to think about your story. If you download the PDF that I'm going to put in the chat, you can actually type in your thoughts there, or you can write them in the chat or on your phone, whatever you have nearby. But the goal is to think about a topic, and these will be on the worksheet I'm going to put in the chat. Situation, action, result, and share it with in the breakout group so everyone gets a chance, and our facilitators will help make sure that people have a chance to share or get some feedback on like, hey, I'm having trouble thinking of the result. Ask the group. Everyone will have a couple minutes of time to use within the group to help move their story outline forward. Then we'll come back. We'll have a couple people share, and then we're going to talk about resumes. All right. Any questions? Come off mute while I'm putting the PDF in the chat. Feel free to ask them out loud. I'm sure you're not the only person with that question. All right. Without questions, go ahead. Don't put them in breakouts yet. Make sure they can download the PDF, and it'll ask you to save it. And you don't have to download the PDF. It's helpful. If someone in your group has the PDF and you want to screen share, you can do that too. All right. With that, we'll see you back here around 40 after, or 20 to the next hour. All right. Take it away. And we're going to hear from everybody how some of that brainstorming went. Again, you now have a tool. Everyone, welcome back. You now have a tool to start to put your stories together in a coherent way that really allows you to tell it in an impactful format and delivery. So I would love to hear anyone who feels like they got somewhere in that process and would be open to sharing their, at least a glimpse, a snapshot of your story. This is all right, Daniel.
Last year, I partook in the Nisman conference. It's a Model UN conference that has people from all over the world. And my partner and I were in the largest committee. It was like 300 plus people, plus delegates. And we didn't all speak the same language. There were people from Ghana, from Italy, and from Venezuela. And we formed working blocks, which is kind of like teams within the committee that shared common goals. But it was still difficult to come to agreements. And one action that we took that worked effectively to increase our productivity and to make our group more cohesive was we took out the rest of the delegates to lunch, and there we discussed not only what was happening in committee, but also what their lives are at home and things such as, and things a lot of the like. And with this, we were able to pass our paper.
All right, so successful. Was it a grade? Was it how was the paper graded?
It's passed by a vote in the committee.
Oh, got it. So you were able to get your paper passed by the committee. Excellent. Daniel, are you open to a couple pieces of advice?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, great story. I love it. It's very unique. And I think that you did a great job explaining what it was, what the challenge was, and what the solution that you came up with was, and the result. So I thought that was all great. And you have an opportunity to think a little bit further about what your specific role was. I want you to get to a point where in the second part of the story, you're saying, I did this, so that it's not just a we did this. But within that process, what was your role? Were you the one who suggested where you go? Were you the one who initiated some conversations, right? It doesn't have to stay at the whole experience level. You kind of get to zoom in by the middle part of your story and say, like, here's what I did to help contribute to what the group was doing. And I think that'll be really powerful. Overall, awesome. And thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. Other shares. Let's keep it open for another one or two people to share.
I can go.
All right, Sarah, I saw you contemplating. I thought you were going to break through, and here we are.
So pretty much I'm really involved in BBYO. And so one of my big things was that I wanted to be on the regional board, which is like the board that oversees like the entire state of Illinois, which is our region. And so I went through like the whole application process and like the interviews and like that kind of stuff. And then it finally came to like election day when I was like all prepared with my speech, my platforms, all that kind of stuff. And I gave it my best shot. I didn't win, but it was all okay in the end because it made me like understand that maybe that wasn't the right time, but that I could still be involved in my chapter board and still like have those same leadership roles.
Awesome. I love that learning that you took away from it and the challenge that you experienced. All right, come back off mute for a minute. Are you open to a couple pieces of advice?
Of course.
Excellent. One is just keep in mind that when you're saying BBYO or that the board oversees the state of Illinois, that can sound misleading and not to say you were misleading, but confusing to someone who doesn't understand like the structure of BBYO. So it might help to say, BBYO, Jewish youth organization focused on, leadership and, youth development that has chapters spread out across the state of Illinois. And I chose to run to be on the board, which oversees all of those chapters. Like, just give a little bit of, put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know what BBYO is. It's a great example. You can practice these types of answers with people who don't know what BBYO is, right? Someone from school or something who's not involved, and get a little bit of be like, did you understand all that? And you can do that for anything. Daniel, you could do it with someone who doesn't know what NYSSMA is and you know, see what they say. Like maybe they want a little bit more detail. Because one of the things we want to make sure you do is focus on the experience and people don't get lost in the details of trying to understand. The other thing, Sarah, that I think would be really powerful to add to your story is what drove you to make that choice. Can you tell us a little bit like what inspired you, or, you know, what did you see growing up in BBYO that made you decide to even try?
Yeah, so previously I'd been in BBY, like involved for 3 years prior, and like there were a lot of seniors and older people and upperclassmen that like were on regional board that I was close to, that I really looked up to. And especially one of my closest friends in my chapter, she was previously on regional board the past year, and she was talking to me about it and like all the cool things that they did. And I was like, this is something I want to try. I've been on our chapter board 2 or 3 times now, and I want to go bigger. So that was kind of my thought process.
I love it. Add that in. That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And that also shares kind of your personal connectivity to other people, and, you know, that you're really part of the community, which I think is powerful. All right. We have time for one more share. Sarah, thank you so much for that. Who wants to give it a shot? Jordana, coming back on the mic.
So every week I volunteer at a respite program for children with special needs. So basically it gives the parents a break that they can focus on their other children who don't have special needs, because they're constantly giving these children like attention, and they just want to like have dinner once a week or like with their other children and be able to like do homework with them. So it's basically one volunteer pairs up with one child, and it happens every night, and I go once a week. And this summer, a lot of the volunteers go away for the summer. So I was one of the few volunteers who was home. So I still went, but we didn't have the opportunity to do a one-on-one. So we all had to like, each volunteer had to take more than one kid and more than what we're used to. And I learned that like, even though like that wasn't something that like I was used to doing, I wasn't like, I've never done more than 1v1. I was able to like adapt to it, and I was able to learn that like I can handle more than one kid, and yeah.
All right, keep going. What was the result? Like what was your experience of the kids' experience?
So like the kids were just so happy, even if like I wasn't giving them like each like individual attention, like I was working with them as a group and like as a collective, but they each were still so happy, and it showed me that like I'm able to like work with a whole group rather than just 1v1.
Excellent. Awesome. As I like to ask, are you open to some advice?
Yes.
Okay, great. So one piece that I would add is the kind of what do you see as the skill that you're using here? I like adaptability on the back part of that story, in terms of kind of like your choice or what you're trying to accomplish by taking care of these kids. You know, a little bit more background on like, you want to develop the skill of, you know, learning to take care of people with special needs, or maybe it's a little more broad. Maybe it's like, you know, I want to build on my empathy or my patience, or like, right. So give a little bit of insight into that choice, similar to what I said to Sarah, of like what got you to enter this situation in the first place. I think can be really good. And then the other piece is on the end of the story, kind of getting into not actually back up to the middle part of the story, the emotion that came with it. Like, were you nervous? Right? How did you feel when you realized like, wow, I'm one of the few volunteers here, so I'm gonna have to take care of more than one kid? This is a big responsibility. It already is with one-on-one, right? So kind of share a little bit about that emotion. And then at the end, and you started to get into this, what does it set you up for in the future, right? So like, or did you do something after that experience where you were like, see, I you know, it made me realize how adaptable I could be, and that I could take care of, you know, be responsible for a greater, in business you'd call it a portfolio, but these are people, so let's call it a greater, you know, a larger group. And then what? Right? Or maybe that then what is yet to come if it was this summer. So, you know, just keep an eye out for like what you can say is further evidence of how you grew from that experience. Awesome. Okay, those were great examples. I am sure everybody would like a chance to share, and we also get to talk about some resumes and do a little bit of interaction around those. So give yourselves 2 thumbs up, round of applause, pat on the back, whatever is encouraging to you for already getting to this point in the workshop and having thought already more about applications, resumes, and interviews than you did 45 minutes ago. So well done, and take a deep breath, literally, if you want. I don't do it enough. And we're going to talk about resumes for a few minutes. This is where I get to try this thing that is kind of cool and also not as cool as some people think it is. But it's a Zoom. Can I do it? Let's see. Yes, slides as a virtual background. Give me a second. Oh no, where's the, oh, hang on, here I come. Let's see if it'll do it. I'm gonna be in the bottom right. Wait for it. Oh, yeah, it's coming. It'll be worth it. Hey, here I am. What a fun and weird feature that Zoom has. All right, so I'm in your corner. So we're going to talk for resumes, and this will apply for the applications and the stories as well. You know, I know some of you were really doing a great job already of thinking about how to say things and, you know, how to structure the sentence and give it that professional tone. And that's important. So don't lose that. And we're going to really talk about some specific words here. So let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay. So in the chat, there's going to be some interactive chatting. What are words that express leadership without saying the word leadership? I know the first person is always going to be the one who types leadership. Responsibility, great. If you haven't participated yet in this workshop, now's your chance. It's very low pressure. It's just the chat. Yeah, anyone on here can help, teens or otherwise. All right, being the bigger person. Nice. Role model, responsibility, teamwork, initiative. Yes, these are great. All right, next one. Words that express teamwork. Don't say teamwork. Collaborative. Nice one, Jordana. What else? What comes to mind when you think teamwork? Listening, unity, respect. Yes. Zachary coming in. All right. What are words? Now we're at the next level of difficulty. Capability. The capability or ability to do something. What's a word that, without using the word capability or ability, represents that? Ooh, aptitude, achievements. Yes. Go with that, everybody. Think aptitude, achievements. What are some other words? Potential. Nice. I know this one's harder. This is not our normal vocabulary necessarily. All right. And words that express success. Think about that results section of the story. Achievement, yes. How do I know you were successful? Learning, great. Excellence, awesome. These are great. You guys are really good at this game. And JUF team, can we save the chat and maybe we can add these words to the slide? in like some bubbles when we send it out. Awesome. All right, performance. Great. Zach getting 2 in there. Okay. Now we're getting into the phrasing. This is all warming up, and then I'm going to share some examples of resumes. How else could you say ran a program with a group? And that group could be the participants or the other people you ran the program with. Led a group in a program. Great. I like that word led. Much better than running a program, right? Lead a program. That gets back to that I piece as well. I led the program. Initiated a program. Excellent. Oh yeah. Worked with fellows to initiate and run a program. Yes. These are great. This is a top-notch set of responses. All right. Next one. How else could you say was in charge of a group that planned a program? What else? I was in charge of a group. How else could you say that? And you can actually think back to my story example if it clicks for you. I was in charge of a group that planned a program. What's important about that you'd want to say? Oh, coming in. Woo. Led a program development group. Yes. Planned events and programming for the group. Headed a committee. Love that. Oversaw, managed, supervised, right? Yeah. Really good. See, this is the game you get to play. Putting together a good resume and good stories. Some of it's a game, right? Some of it is about rethinking what you would naturally say and making sure that it puts your skills forward. And I really think that the one that sticks out to me of what we just went through is this idea of ran a program versus led a program. Okay, those are so different in what they're saying about your skill set. You can run a program. Well, what does that mean? Were you, and there's nothing wrong with it, but were you tech support? Were you the facilitator? Were you a breakout room facilitator? Right? But if you were leading the program, say it. And if you led it with other people, say what your role was as a leader of the program, right? We don't have to lie. We don't have to be like, oh, I led a program and there were 5 other people helping you. But maybe my role within the leadership team for the program was to, facilitate the discussion questions. Say that. This is all great. Also, I always love that I'm in the corner of these slides. All right, cleaned up trash in my neighborhood. What is another way to say that? Because right now the skill is that you can clean up trash, which is a skill. But I want to make sure that it's a skill for the job you're applying for. And if it's not about, something in a janitorial setting, what else might you want to tell people about that experience? All right, think about that. I think we're losing a little steam in the chat. So I'm going to have you guess the job. A team member who collaborated with 20 to 25 coworkers to develop multiple mission-driven projects each week, created and implemented new ideas. Daniel, I see your example. We'll get back to it. Created and implemented new ideas on a daily basis in order to build trust and reduce conflicts. Strategically determined allocation of budget, other resources for at least one project each week, and balanced 3 leadership responsibilities to accomplish both personal and team goals. What is this job? And it is a real job. There's a job behind this resume. Maybe we need a monetary prize for guess the job. Next time it'll be a $5 gift card. But right now, free guesses. Oh wow. Naomi's upping the stakes. She's like, let's do the gift card now. Manager coming in again. It is not a manager. It is a team member. What setting do you think this job is in? I guess maybe we should be more specific. All right, we have 3 guesses. Any other guesses? The setting is going to be for the $5 gift card. All right. Nice. Daniel, only one guess. Come on. All right, Zach's coming in with another guess also. The correct answer is summer camp. This is from when I was a counselor at Osrui, and I'm going to share the actual resume entry. Great guesses, and they demonstrate exactly what I wanted to see, which is this could be anywhere. This doesn't have to be that I worked at a summer camp and the person I'm interviewing for knows nothing about summer camp or the value of working at summer camp. So it's my job to articulate to them the professional value of what I did at camp. So Daniel got the correct answer. All these guesses are really good, and they drive home an important point. So let me, I'm going to show you the whole resume entry and how that plays out. But I want to give you some resume tips before I exit my very comfortable placement in this slide deck. So some quick tips, and we'll send these out. So I'm going to go through them pretty quickly to be respectful of where we're at on time. Choose your verbs wisely. I think we did a great job re-choosing wisely. Soft skills are essential skills. Communication, connecting with other people, being kind, those are essential. Back up whatever you include. So, sometimes we get caught up of like, all right, well, I can't say, that I was planning projects when I was a camp counselor, but I can because a program is a project. Use non-job projects that even if you might not have had 3 jobs to fill up page 1 of your resume, but any experiences you've had, including school projects, can be on your resume if you can think about how to frame what you did and what you accomplished, the situation, the action, the result, and on your resume, a few of the roles that you played within whatever team or group that you were part of. And the transferable skills, I think we did a great job. I have full confidence that this group understands how to make these skills transferable in terms of not using just BBYO or just, Student United Nations, but really thinking about what matters to people that isn't just about that experience. Be clear, specific, and concise. And then some personal statement tips that relate to all this. It's not your resume, neither is your interview. Your interview is not your resume. So you get to think in a personal statement. You want to think about your standard essay format, but really think about the story as well. Situation, action, result. What were they? And you can tell a few stories in your personal statement. The method, the situation or task, the action, the result. You'll see in the examples repetition and then the emotion. And be unique. I love what people shared in this group because they were really unique individual experiences, and that will help already. Because if you have a good story and it falls under something that you're passionate about, it's going to be unique, and that's going to help set you apart. Every sentence counts. I really believe when you're telling those stories, like, think, what does this sentence tell to someone else who's reading or listening? And then let me show you an example. I'm going to reshare my screen. So this is a lot of text, but focusing here. This is what I showed you in Guess the Job. And you'll notice I do not mention that I worked with kids at summer camp, because the job I was applying for, even if we did education research, was about working with administrators. It wasn't about working with kids. Now I have on the second page of this is an example of when you are working with kids. So why don't I jump, it's not in this PDF, but But certainly if you're going into childcare or social work or healthcare, that could be a big example that you want to emphasize. Then when I became a unit head, when I wasn't just a counselor at camp, but I was in charge of counselors, and that came up in the chat a bunch. What did I say as a unit head? Well, essentially, I'm a department manager. I'm mediating conflicts. I'm delegating responsibilities, and I'm providing evaluations. Those are real tasks that happen everywhere outside of camp and at camp, in my own experience. And then lastly, I went back to be the assistant director. I got camp to structure my title to be really specific to what I'm good at. And then, one of the most impressive things I did was I created training programs for 200 employees. Tell me someone who's in their 20s that has done that. Very few people. But being at camp or being at BBYO or Student United Nations, all of those examples can translate to something really impressive. All right, I want to take the last 5-6 minutes for questions. And I also need to get water, so give me 1 second. And Hadassah, you will come off for the first question, okay? All right, I'm back. Hadassah, go ahead and
Well, I was gonna ask two things.
Yeah.
One is like kind of about like length and like what to include, because like I'm writing a more of a high school resume, so it's not like I have like a million like jobs or like internships or everything yet. But like what kind of things, like there's some things I'm involved with that I'm like for sure have to be on a resume, but some things I'm like I'm involved in them and they're impressive, but like do they need to be on a resume? Like what should qualify? Like, and I also don't want to overcrowd. So would it be better to go on 2 pages? Like what kind of stuff for that?
Yeah, step one is identify like which ones are expressing a unique skill. I think that's really the most important, is that, you have a lot of experiences, but some of them might be kind of similar. Like for me, for example, I taught at 2 preschools in Chicago, and I also I was in charge of 4 different youth groups, like different age groups, but I clumped those together because ultimately there was a very similar skill in, project development or curriculum development, whatever I was doing in those settings. So that's step one, I think, to kind of pare down how many entries you might have. And then I would say, typically industries are leaning toward 1-page resumes. And at the same time, if you have enough unique experiences and skills, I think you could go on to a page 2, and maybe go for like a 1.5 pages. I would try to avoid filling 2 full pages. And then the other thing I would say is to also think about, like, maybe for each entry, you have what it was and the dates that you had it, that you were in that position, and then 1 or 2 bullet points. Well, let me go back, 2 or 3 bullet points. But maybe you go 2 bullet points and everything could fit on a page. And Hadassah, I'm happy to take a look if you want to send me something. I'll share my email address at the end, and that goes for anybody. If you have something that you'd like me to look at, part of the partnership with Springboard is really providing some support to all of you for attending. So know that, and I really mean it. I know it might be scary. You might be like, it's not good enough. Well, to that I say, get out of your own way, because we get to get through this together. And I say that with compassion, to really don't let perfect be the enemy of learning. Great question.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. Other questions?
I have to leave, right? Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I have to go. Bye. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Daniel. Chloe, go ahead.
It's actually Chloe's mom.
Chloe's mom, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. One is that when you were talking about working at camp, you described it as a youth-based nonprofit. Is there a reason you didn't describe it as a Jewish camp?
There was I was going for kind of the alternative that someone would quickly understand. I find that when I put summer camp, people don't really always have a visual of what that is. And so if I put like nonprofit youth-based organization, that it removes a barrier of understanding. But it wasn't to avoid, certainly it wasn't to avoid the religious aspect or that it was a summer camp specifically.
Okay, so that leads me into my second question, which might be a little controversial.
Go for it.
Which is, Chloe's a high school senior. She's putting together her college applications and writing about different things for different schools. And my concern, and I just got this message that said low battery, my computer's gonna die, but my concern is if she were to write about her participation in a Jewish organization, is she opening herself up for bias or anti-Semitism by the person or people who are reading her essays or her application?
I imagine that, I guess the definitive answer is it does open up a door for that. And I would say that, with the goal of expressing who she is and her identity, that I would encourage her to be open about that. But I would say people have different comfort levels. And so I'm really speaking on my own opinion and my own comfort with doing that. But I don't think that it's shameful or embarrassing to not mention it. And I think that on the other side, if there's confidence and pride in doing it, to go forward with it as well. So that's kind of my personal take. I wouldn't put that on JUF or anyone else in this room, but that's where I would come from, is to say that either is correct based on comfort level and choice, and acknowledging that we live in a really challenging societal time and culture, where we even have to have that question. But I appreciate you asking it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone, we're coming up on time. So I want to make sure that I get my email into the chat. It'll also be in the slides that we'll send out. We'll send out the worksheet, and we'll send out the resume examples, all of that by the end of the week. And then please follow up if you have questions or you want any more guidance. I am always happy to help and really passionate about this work, because all of you are doing amazing things and you get to tell your stories in powerful ways. So my email is daniel@effectiveteam.work. And outside of that, thank you all for coming, and thanks JUF for bringing me in.
Thanks, Daniel. And I have a couple of notes before people log off. If you just have another minute, I want to work together to thank Daniel for this tremendous workshop and sharing tips and tricks and techniques for presenting our best selves in any application and interview in the future. And as Daniel mentioned, you are welcome to reach out to him, or you can reach out to me and I will happily connect the two of you. A couple other notes. Tonight you've met Jess and Naomi, who are on Springboard Student Engagement staff, and they'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one about finding other ways, other programs in the community that are tailored to your interests and passion areas during high school. There are a few leadership programs that still have spots open for the year that we'd be happy to talk with you about. Naomi can send a link in the chat about how to get in touch with her and schedule a meeting with her or Jess. They're also happy to talk about opportunities for sharing your story more publicly through blog posts, social media, or in other spaces. And I also mentioned at the beginning of our time together that this program was partially inspired by our work on 18 Under 18, which is a program that elevates teen leaders' voices and experiences. And nominations are currently open for this award through September 30th. So please reach out to me if you're interested in hearing more about that. And finally, I'm excited to share that we're partnering with Jewish communities throughout the country to offer Virtual College Road Trip, which is an online platform that allows you to learn about 65 universities and hear all about the school and the Jewish community at that school directly from current students. That program will launch the week of October 23rd. And we'll keep you all updated on that and any other college planning programs that we will offer throughout the year. So stay tuned for that. But let's thank Daniel for taking the time to be here with us, and please reach out with any other questions. Thank you all. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome. Bye everyone. Great to see you.